Hey, y'all, be starting in a minute. If you're joining me from my email newsletter list or one of my community members, feel free, or anybody, feel free to drop in and say hey. Let me know where you are watching from. Just making sure my stream's going well. I have not gone streaming in over a week. It's been crazy. Okay, let me share my screen. Wait, what is this? Okay. Standard. All right, so hopefully a few of my newsletter friends will be able to join in. David, I know, I wish. Oh my gosh, I'm dying to go back to France, but and I probably will be going back to Europe soon. But I'm kind of waiting to go back to the Schengen zone because it's a long story, but actually I had overstayed my visa a little bit. And so I'm kind of letting some time run down before I go back, but I kind of feel exiled. It's not a cool feeling, but I know it's there anyway. So hopefully I'll be back over the winter. And then, yeah, so I'm just going to get into it and hopefully a few people will catch on. But if you guys are not familiar with my multicolor brush techniques, I've got links down below in the description. And I'm doing something a little bit today different than my other, my regular stuff where I'm doing like illustrations and all that stuff. It's so like I'm accenting photography, and this is like some good tips for graphic designers because like a lot of designers might not think they need Photoshop brushes for anything. And oh, and let me know if my sound is okay. I forgot to check it. Eeks. Let me just double check. Hello, hello. Oh, okay, good. All right, thanks. I'm just like really paranoid about not having my sound going after the like a couple times that I've turned my sound off. But anyway, like so yeah, just kind of this is more for designers or people that think maybe they don't do a lot of illustrating so they don't need Photoshop brushes. But if you're new, I'm just going to fly through this really fast. You can get some of my brushes for free on Adobe Creative Cloud. I've got a link on my website, and then also down below I've got a link to my multicolor brush technique. So what's cool about the multicolor brushes is that you can sample colors directly from photos. So it can be really nice accents. And so in this one, I'm doing more of I'm doing more of a portrait. So this could kind of be something like more editorial, but you can do it for any type of photograph. And then also I've got the wet paint mixer brushes. I'll be using those a little bit. But I kind of was just kind of riffing, and I thought I would play with one portrait and do it different ways with different brushes and just kind of show my little process of like how I set up my palettes whenever I'm getting ready to do something like this. Oh, thanks for letting me know, Lucas, that the sound is good. So I got this photo off of Unsplash. And so one of the big things about my brushes is that you can sample colors directly from the images. So I can I can cut out that portrait and make like a cool composition, or you could use this if you're doing collage or layouts and stuff. But, of course you can sample colors directly from the image. So that's kind of what I did. And I just was playing around with some different techniques and different ways to kind of like accent this portraiture. So that's what I did for today's little thing. And so the first thing that I do is I more than anything, I make my Impressionist brush palettes. So I go to the image, and in this case, I'll just look at, even though I already have it cut out, it's fine. So I kind of make I sample colors from my images. So I know that like in this one, I want the backgrounds to be either red or white and red because that's her outfit. So I take my rectangular marquee tool, and I think I've already saved my color palettes. You can see here, I just made a few different ones. But what I did was oops, no, did not do a brush. I take my rectangular marquee tool and I sampled, like, for example, in this, the rose here. So I went around that. I hit edit define pattern. And for me, I created a keyboard shortcut. So it's Command M and I click OK. And so I just went around here and tried to find different zones where some of it I wanted to be more subtle. So I might select an area like here and I'll hit edit define pattern, click OK. Maybe one I want with a really subtle change of, colors here. So I'll just sample around my images. And when I define the samples for my images, then all those colors are going to come out of the Photoshop brush. So I just do that in different areas for my Impressionist brushes. And sometimes I might want to have some dark bits, some light bits, and whatever. So that's what I do to get started. Hey, Sydney, super happy to see you here. Love to see my little the same names and everything popping up. But yeah, so the first thing I do is just sample for my color blending Impressionist brushes. So I'm going to find them when I click my pattern stamp tool. I'll see them in my patterns, and let me just put all these together. So I did some other things. So I just kind of keep them together. So that's what I did to get my palettes. And that way I know my brush strokes are going to exactly match my photography. And hey, Gotta Leave, super happy to see you. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is like think about my wet paint mixer brushes, because I kind of like to set up my mise en place, to use like a French kitchen term, but like I like to have everything set up before I get going. So I've already, with the sampling the colors from the images and the patterns, those are really the easiest. So I start with those and I've just got them up here, so it's fine. But with the wet paint mixer brushes, a lot of the times I can sample images or sample colors from the image. But say, for example, I'm wanting to sample, or for example, I want to sample some cream or something up here, or a red. But maybe if I take my brush and go hover over it to like sample, I might get some of the white on the, from here, or I might get some of the colors that are surrounding the area that I want to sample. So what I do then is I will take my Impressionist palettes that I just made and then make a wet paint palette. And sometimes I do something like what I also did was I took my elliptical marquee tool and then I went to the like this my image, my photograph, and so I zoomed in, because sometimes I really love that serendipity of sampling directly from the image. So I held down my shift key, or I think I just went like this and tried to get the most of that area without getting any of the surrounding area. So I went something like this, and let me just duplicate this here. So let me just I'm just going to hit cut. So I'm going to cut that from that extra layer. And so then what I did was I pasted it over here, and I think I just stretched it out so it's more circle shape. And now that's like a little tip that you can do, so that way you have the colors that you want to sample for the wet paint mixer brushes all kind of isolated. And then another thing you can do is take the pattern stamp tool and maybe some of that red from the rose that you just sampled, and I make little palettes like you see here, which if you've used the mixer brushes, you're probably familiar with those. But I have my palette maker brushes, and so all I do is I'll make a new layer and then just go like this, and it's just little dots. And so sometimes you can get more dramatic brush strokes because it's like mixing all those colors that are coming out of that image in there. So I'll do that one. So I have like a red stroke, and then I'll take like one of my white palettes or kind of creamy. And as you can see, it's not pure like white and cream. There's little grays, there's little whatever. And so now I have some little like wet paint mixer brush palettes already set up. So that's kind of like setting everything up. And then now I'm just going to kind of go through and show you some ideas of like what I did on some of these. So sometimes I just start, I don't even know, like I just start going and see what happens. And this can be cool. This is like more, you know, this could be for final designs or editorial or whatever, but you can, I think it's really fun. And just, I like that idea of just taking one portrait and doing it so many different ways. And it's just like, take a brush and just start, you know, painting and see what happens. Mixer brush samples only work when rasterized. Yeah, that's totally true, David. You can't have a smart object. So if you had something that was saved as a smart object, you're going to have to like duplicate the layer and rasterize for sure. And also, one of the little tips that I had was like, what was I going to say? Oh, I'll show you later on where I'll sample from like all layers, but then I do it on its own layer, so it's like non-destructive, but I'll get into that one. So like, this one was, okay, I'll just go with this. This is a pretty basic one. So all of these I started with like something like this, like a red or cream background, and I've got my picture. And so this one I just took 21 and with one of my lighter color palettes, and I just went back and forth. And I was actually going to do something different with it, but I liked how that looked. I was actually going to use, I was just trying to lay down color, and I was going to use my paint pulling brushes and do that sort of effect, but I liked this sort of dramatic effect with this one. Here, let me just get that one. And one of the things that I do is like, I was using full pressure so that you have that dramatic brush transition like you see there, because I wasn't really caring what it looked like finally, because I was going to use my paint pulling, but finally in the end I liked that dramatic and I thought I would just go with it. But of course with those brushes, if you use like a softer pressure, then you're going to get a lighter, the transition is going to be softer. But finally I liked that dramatic transition and I just thought I would kind of go with that. So that's the one that I started, and then I thought I would just add some like mixer brushes. So I think I grabbed, this looks like I grabbed brush 51 from my wet paint mixer brushes. So then I hopped over to my mixer brush, and then I, gosh, where is it? Let's see here. Oh yeah, I have my little lines here so that I can find my brushes a little bit faster. And I want to say that this was 51, but we will see. Okay, it's got a gold loaded up already, so that gives me a little preview. Yeah, I think that's it finally. And so I just made some brushes, but also brush strokes with this, but I liked intersecting here the red and the cream, so I thought it looked really cool. So let me turn that off. And so then I'm going to go over to my palette here that I created. Oops. And I merged some of these. Let me make sure I have the right layer. So I'm just going to like option click to load up that white creamy palette. And then which portrait were we on? 4. So then I just made some strokes like this, and I just thought they were like really cool. I like how it just contrasted. I like having a contrast of like the Impressionist brushes behind and then that wet paint mixer brush. And I think that's like really fun. And then I could also go over to my palettes here and get like a red stroke. And for this one, maybe I will just sample it. I'll sample this one just directly from the image. So we'll see how that turns out. And it could be different than the, wait, let me see here. Sometimes, let me make a new layer. So sometimes you can have like less drama if you are sampling from the image. There's the image. So let's go back to the palette, and I'm going to sample, like, say from this palette that I made specially. And I got to remember which freaking document I was working on. So there's portrait 4. this one, so that's one of the benefits you see of how I made my own color palette, because there's more of a blocky region, and it just depends on what sort of effect you want. But if you want kind of a smooth and creamy brush stroke with like lots of little nuances, sometimes making your own palette like I did there is a bit better, because when I sampled from the image, it's like more bigger chunks of like dark areas and light areas. So I'm going to just delete those, and then I've got the white strokes, so then I'm going to go on the same layer and kind of just playing around with like blending them and just touching them a little bit. One thing you can also do, and I keep forgetting to do it, is to take the smoothing like a little bit higher so that it's a little bit more, because I don't really have that steady of a hand, but I like where when you can see those colors interacting, and I think that's what makes it really quite special and looks very, makes it look a bit more unique. So that's my sample that I did there, but here's the one that I did before, which compositionally maybe it looks a little bit better, I don't know. But just playing around with that. So this can be really fun for like accenting your images, or you could just make something on its own and just take colors from an image. So that's fun. That's portrait 4. Let's see what we got. This one was kind of cool, and I really liked the simplicity of this, which normally I'm not all for simplicity. But what's funny is how this one finally ended up. Gosh, should I do a version of that without? No. 4, 5. Okay, so what I was going to do was, again, I had the idea to do paint pulling brushes, but instead I kind of pivoted and did something a little bit different. So here I just laid down some colors with using I think I used Modern Impressionist 21. And then I also kind of just had some white strokes across there, because I had the idea to do my paint pulling and that I was going to pull those. And so I'm just laying down color in stripes, and then I was going to do a paint pulling. But and I'll just show you that really quick. Like, I've had a lot of fun lately with the paint pulling brushes. Where are they? Renaissance. So let's see here. Here's one. So, it doesn't matter so much the particulars, because when you start pulling that paint, it's just gonna smush it together, but it's just you like lay like some big blocks of color down and then see what happens, and then you pull them. So that was quite cool, but the one thing that I decided to do instead was just take like a single brush stroke and use that, leave that background and pull it across and drag it, but on a new layer. And then we got these really cool, what we ended up with was these really cool kind of wild brush strokes, which that would that would be really hard to create a brush stroke with all those colors mixing in that particular way, even if you're making your own palette. And so that was something new that I came upon, with that, like using that stripe layer and just dragging a brush across it. And I liked how it turned out, and I liked the simplicity, and I thought it was really pretty. Ursula, so the palette brushes, I do believe that I have them here on my, on the foundation guide on my website, which is in the blog, and I also have it linked on the Start Here page. And I want to say that I have a link inside here. Yes, the link is right here. I wonder if I can copy link address. I don't know if I can put it in my... I'll put it down below after the thing anyway, so that people can, you guys can download that if you don't have it. But yeah, sometimes I think some of the people might not have realized that they have that. I think I had put it on a YouTube video, so some people, even if you have my Modern Impression or my Modern Impressionist, you might not have that. So definitely download that. So okay, so I'm going back to that that thing that I made, that background, the stripy background. So that's what I did. So let me just make a new layer. And I'm going to just stick with, I don't know which brush I used, what brush I used, but I'll just stick with um, like a wet paint studio brush. Let's say, maybe I'll just use that 51 because it kind of was nice. I don't exactly know if that's the brush that I used, but here's the key. So I can, what did I do? Oh, so I've got the image in the background. I've got the woman in the front, and now I kind of had to turn her off before when I was doing this because otherwise it'll select colors from her. So what I did was I turned it off, and I'm just trying to remember kind of where she was. I'm going to make a new layer above the background layer, but whenever okay, and so then what I have selected is the Wet Paint Studio Brush 51, and I'm just going to go over here up to the top left and clear out that color here because it's preloaded with golden. I don't want that. So I'm clearing out the color. So it's just going to dry, it's just going to take color from the image. And what I'm going to do is click Sample All Layers. But even if I click Sample All Layers, I'm on a new layer. So it's going to create like the brush stroke like that. And that's not the same brush that I used, but anyway, it'll be fine. So now let's turn off that brush, that background, sorry. And now you can see I've got those kind of wild mixing brush strokes. And if I turn her back on, then, you can see it's a little bit pretty the same thing there. So that's how I did it. And again, I don't know exactly which brush I used, but I hid her, had the background, had a new layer, and then I'm I'm dropping the color out of my mixer brush, making sure Sample All Layers is done. Oh, I don't like that. So I can just go through, there I grabbed another brush, but I didn't drop the color out. So I want to drop the color out. Oh, and I didn't hit Sample All Layers. And then, you can get all these different sort of effects. And again, I wish I knew which brush I used, but if I turn that off, then you can see the brush. Some of them look cooler, some of them might look like a little bit weirder, but you can play around. Also, sometimes I grab brushes from the Galaxy or the 24 karat gold collection, which are also the smooth ones at the end of it, like Wet 3. Let me just Sample All Layers, turn off the color. Oh, that one barely moves it. They all have different settings, so it's gonna, affect it in different ways. But this is a really cool way to get that like a very different effect with those brush strokes. And then if I turn off the background, then we're gonna see just that brush stroke, and it's like a little bit, that one's a little bit kooky, but whatever. So just those things interacting are quite nice. But the ones that I did, I could probably figure out what brush this is later. But this is one of the wet brushes. And oh, you know what? I think now that I remember, I think it's one of the paint pulling brushes. But rather than just fill up the whole thing, I just made a stroke. But that's why it has so many of the different little notches and stuff. So that's pretty much that one. But I thought it was really pretty, and or that's the one that I did anyway. But I thought it was really pretty, and I liked how it turned out. It looked very, the simplicity was quite pretty. And, I don't really normally do simplicity very much, but sometimes, And this one was pretty easy, pretty straightforward. I used the glitch core ones, which this one, I like this. This one is more of a simplistic, artistic, romantic vibe, and then this one is more techie. So, of course, each brush collection will give you a different sort of vibe or whatever. Hey, Rhoda, super glad. Yeah, something different, I kind of, sometimes I want to remind designers and stuff, people that even if you're not doing, illustrations or, whatever, that you can get creative with Photoshop brushes, and it's really for everybody. So this one I pretty much just used 2 brushes, And I used my glitch core. Let's turn this off here. No, I think that's the same one. Glitch core brush 34. So of course I grabbed my pattern stamp tool. I grabbed one of the rose selections that I did, and then rose color palettes. So let's just turn this off. Let's make a new layer. Let's see if I can recreate it as good as whenever I first did it. Glitch core 34. I love this brush. I think it's really cool. Oh yeah, I got some. That was so funny. I just got some like likes across the screen because they were like sending this out to the Adobe Live, so that's really nice. But I'm like, what is happening on my screen? So yeah, so I'll just grab, so what I did is I have that Glitch Core Brush 34, and let's see what I did. And so I want to say, oh, that's better. I had made another little pattern and sampled without some of the dark. So I put that glitch core and just love that. So that was fun. I love that brush. I think it's really, it looks like ribbons, like glitchy ribbons. And I think it's just a lot of fun. Hey, Misha, glad to see you join in. So what I did was do that. That was Glitch Core Brush 34. So I'm going to go back to my original one here. And then I just took that white color palette that I made and I used Glitch Core 44 for some like, it's kind of got a feathery vibe. So let me just make a new layer. I'm going to go over and grab that white color palette that I sampled from her blazer. And then let's grab 44. And sometimes these Glitch Core brushes are like a bit funny, that they're like a little, they're glitchy and they're wild. So sometimes the direction of the brush, you have to go a certain direction to get like a certain effect. But I just kind of did like a couple strokes with the Glitch Core, or the Glitch Core 44. So I just added them in the kind of the negative space. And so this was like a fun little accent, just something simple and, you know, and fun. And but this gives it like a much more like a modern sort of techie edge. So if you were making, say, like an editorial layout or something like this is just using like two brushes, sampling colors from your image, and you can really like make something a lot more creative, like if you had a spread or something. So Photoshop brushes are, if you're just joining me, Photoshop brushes are not just for illustrators and stuff. Designers can get like loads of use out of them. And, you know, and then sampling directly from the images is really great. So you can know that your colors are going to match exactly. CC, okay. If you have full CC subscription, download them there. Okay. Actually, Steve, these are brushes that I make myself, my color blending brushes, which are really special. The multicolor brushes. By the way, if you're just joining me, like, you can, I've got the links down below, but you can download some of my brushes for free on Adobe. And yeah, they're all very special. They're specially designed so that multiple colors can come out. You can sample colors from images, and they're very different from standard brushes. So yeah, if you guys are like just joining and you're new to this technique, sorry for all my regulars who know it, but on my website I've got a guide to this multicolor brush technique. So you can learn all about that there, sampling colors directly from images. And also for the wet paint mixer brushes, but the brushes have to be specially designed for these if you're doing this multicolor technique. So because like one of the ones that I just demonstrated was my glitch core ones, which by the way, these are available for my Behance subscribers. If you don't like specially design them, then the colors coming out will just be like totally bandy, which sometimes that's the vibe, but you know, sometimes not. Anyway, so yeah, so this is just doing like playing with different brushes and showing you how you can accent your photos your layouts. This is actually kind of like a little bit different from my normal tutorials because it's normally I'm doing a lot of illustration and stuff, but this is to show designers that you can use Photoshop brushes and accent your layouts, your editorials, and do lots of fun things. So definitely check it out. Which one did I do here? This one was like, which one did I don't know which one I want to go next. And you can check the beginning of the video to see if you want to see how I set up all of my color palettes for the brushes. And Zishan, normally I'm using, I hope that they will start to have the pattern stamp tool working the same way on Photoshop for Fresco or Photoshop for iPad or Fresco, but I use the desktop because most of the time I'm using the pattern stamp tool, and the pattern stamp tool is is really like, this is just for mainly Photoshop. Oh, and sorry about that. I think you were asking. I use a Wacom tablet. That's like my number one thing. I'm not really, I love to look straight ahead, and yeah, so because all of my brushes are like pressure sensitive, and so you're going to have a lot more control if you have like a Wacom tablet or any kind of entry-level tablet. Is so much better. But yeah, so let me get into this one really quick. So this one was, it might look a bit complicated, but it's not so much. So first of all, I started off with, well, let's see here. I think I did the background last. Let me turn off some layers here. So I knew because, okay, so this one I kind of used a little cheat. I'm using my ruby garnet layer styles to make these sort of stones, but because it had this red rose, I thought the background would be really fun to make like kind of ruby stone sort of effects. And I can get into that in a second. Let me turn off my gold. Let me turn off, let's see here, the background. So I started with this. So I'm just going to kind of break this down to show you how I made these stones really quick. Some of you guys might have been like familiar with this, let's see here. But these came together. These are really easy to make. And I have a full tutorial of like how you can make these, but I did a big jump start by using my layer styles, which I specially created. Behance subscribers can download these. And so I just drew some rough shapes in like a dark red. And then I went ahead and put one of my ruby layer styles, which I think it was this one here, on the layer. And then I just softly brushed on to create these rubies. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this, and I'm going to just delete this. So I had created these ruby layer styles. These are available for my Behance subscribers. And I grabbed one of this is my Celestial Goldmine layer styles. And so for this one, I just grabbed, I made a special set of brushes for these. So this is Celestial, let's see here, oh, Golden Jewels. So this is the brushes that came with these. And so I took like one of my soft brushes and I just drew in like softly, maybe not the whole, what makes these like the stones look kind of more realistic is if you don't like just fill the whole layer. Like I drew those layers and I didn't apply that whole layer style on that layer. So I'm making a new layer and then it's going to make it look a little bit more dimensional. But the Celestial Goldmine layer styles, I get like just a ton of use out of those, and you can check my projects and stuff if you're new or you haven't seen them. So I just drew that on really softly, and then what I did was I made like another layer and I put like a lighter one of the ruby layer styles and I like on that layer, and then I might have like just made a touch, drew it on a little bit so you kind of got some highlights. But like on other projects, I showed you guys how I created these layer styles. It's on one of my live streams. But it's just a way for me to create that create that effect really fast, or for my people that want to create those sort of like ruby raw crystal sort of things like really fast, the layer styles are so useful. And then I think I made like a few more layer styles, or not layer styles, a few more layers above it. Yeah, that's what I did. Okay, so what I did was I made another layer, and then what I just did was I grabbed like a black, and I grabbed a soft brush and I put the layer style on multiply. So this one is kind of getting into the layer styles, like creating stones a bit. So anyway, but I'm just going to go ahead and do that since I'm already on. So I just use a soft brush and I put some shadows on over that. And of course, all these things have like, I've created a clipping mask over my base layer. So what I did was I just softly brush in some shadows, and then I did the same thing, but I did like I put another one, and then I made a screen. And this is, I think, this step of kind of creating those stones is one of the things that really gives it a bit of realism and stuff. So I made a new layer. I put the blend mode to screen. I took the opacity down, and then I took one of my soft, like 6 or 7 brushes from the from that collection of Celestial Goldmine, and then yeah, and then I just drew like a little bit, and it really gets that sort of dullness that makes it like a real stone sort of vibe. And so I just did that, and I can take the opacity down a little bit, but it just adds like a little bit extra. And then the last thing I did was I made a new layer, and I used one of my gold play brushes, which is from one of my recent collections. And these are obviously available for my Behance subscribers. And by the way, if you didn't know, you can subscribe for $10 a month and download all of my resources that are on my Behance. I've got tons. So $10 you can get like all kinds of tutorial toolkits, and what else? Like hundreds of brushes. So, and get like all kinds of other things. But what am I looking for? Okay, I'm looking for my gold play brushes, and yeah, here they are. These ones I grabbed, I want to say one of my dry brushes. I think it was like, gosh, I'm gonna have to remember here. Hold on. Maybe like a velour or a ropey one. I'm just gonna grab this velour. No, that was not it. A ropey dry. Yeah, I grabbed this ropey dry accent. So this is like, I've already set this brush up, and it is using the Photoshop mixer brush settings and sampling from gold, and you can get this sort of effect here. But actually, what did I do? Let's see here. I made it bigger, so let me just, I've got that brush. I'm going to go to my gold palette. Most of you guys are really familiar with it, so check out my other projects if you're not. But so with this brush, I want that brush size up a bit more. So I'm going to right bracket to make my brush bigger. I'm going to option and select from this gold image here that I have the special palette I designed. And then I'll go back to my portrait, portrait 2, portrait 3. Okay, and we're going to wrap this up soon because I want to get to some of the other ones for any of you guys that are like watching that might want to see that. Let me get, if it goes out too dark or it's not the color that I want, I can just like grab it, sample another area of that gold. But I make a lot of these resources so that like my people that buy my products or my subscribers can do things really fast, and you don't have to go through all the hard work. But I just thought I love adding gold to everything. If you guys follow me, you know, so I just wanted to add a little bit of gold to that. And yeah, so we got something like that, but on my original one, it turned out like this. So it's a little bit better. I like it. And then the last thing that I did on this one was I added, oh yeah, I was playing around with, one thing that's fun to do is like mixing and matching my color palettes. So for this one, I played around with using one of my iridescent brushes and for the background, but I used that rose color palette that I had selected. I had created that color palette, that pattern from here directly from my image. So normally with my iridescent brushes, you're using iridescent colors, but sometimes, you know, you can mix and match and spice it up. So let me just show the brush really fast. So yeah, that is 3P. Okay, it's the brush. Oh, thankfully, Past Me. I love when Past Me writes on the layer what brush I use. That really helps me. Sometimes I forget to do that, and then after I kind of map out what I'm gonna do, then I'm like, oh my God, what brush should I use? So I use the iridescent, one of my iridescent brushes, and I use 3P, which is a pressure sensitive version of that brush. And so I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to make a new layer. And then I'm selecting my pattern, the pattern that I made directly from the image. And then I'm going to right bracket to make my brush bigger. And now you can see that really kind of cool effect that's happening in the background there. Using that iridescent brush, and I just thought it was something funky and cool, and it's using the colors that are sampled directly from the image, so that's a lot of fun. And just what I love about the iridescent brushes is seeing the colors like playing as you moving around and playing as you go, and it's very, very fun. So that one I went a little bit long on because I wanted to just, as long as I was there, show you guys how I made those stones and stuff. But I've got full tutorials on that on my Behance projects and on my YouTube. And I just thought it was like fun to mix and match that, because normally that brush, I'm gonna just put a new layer here, and let's just like get a good look at it here. That is an iridescent brush, and normally if you're using like the iridescent color palettes, it's looking like this, and it's got those cool sort of effects. And I love the iridescent brushes. I have to use those more in some samples, but you know, as you go, you can see all the colors blending, and you really get that sort of effect of like those little like holographic stickers and things like that. So those brushes are loads of fun if you haven't played with them. And even I have them like as a pressure sensitive, but you can see all the little patterns that I put in those brushes. And you can, I've got iridescent, I've got some overlay, so if you want, you can intensify that and make that, you know, color a little bit darker with those iridescent brushes. So definitely check that out. Let me just put a new layer above this and just show you what I mean. So I've got some layer styles for those. Gosh, jewels, iridescent. Okay, this is to like intensify. It's going to intensify the whole thing, but so you can intensify and see kind of more of like what's happening inside that brush. But anyway, those are the iridescent brushes. Let me zoom out. Okay, so that one I kind of went a little off piece because I didn't use strictly just colors from the image, but anyway, what is it? The ruby layer styles, like that stone effect, I just thought it was cool, so I thought I would play with that. So that's the portrait too. Let's see which other ones that I did. This one was a little funky. Gosh, now I wonder if I can. Oh no, I think I know which brush this is. So let's take this back here. This one for sure is just a couple of wet brush strokes. Did I even put which brush I used? It's one of the brushes from my wet paint studio, but let me turn that off for now. So this one was, oh my gosh, stop whining. Bentley the dog is totally whining to go out, but it's really annoying because when he's whining, he's like Stop it, you. No, go lay down, please. Okay, just gonna ignore him. So yeah, so this one I'm going back with the like the Impressionist brush technique pattern stamp. So like with this one, I just grabbed Modern Impressionist brush number 61. So this is the pattern stamp tool. Let's turn that off. Let's go grab that brush. But you can grab like any brush, honestly. So let's just find the one that I used. That's brush 61. And let me actually go grab one of my color palettes. Okay, that color palette that I selected right from her thing. Okay, and I'm gonna right bracket, gonna make my brush size bigger. So let me just check. Okay, yeah, all right. And then I just, yeah, so this one I just drew some like circles in the background, some spheres, whatever. And it's nice because that, since we had sampled the colors like directly from the image, you know that it's going to match exactly. So I just went really simple with this one. That one, something that was a little bit funny, and this one kind of turned out a little bit wild, but I loved how it did, was playing with this brush, and I'm going to show you which brush that is. So with that one, it was one of my gold play brushes from my recent projects, and it was this calligraphic brush, I want to say. Yeah. So let me just right click. So it's this calligraphic brush, and my gold play brushes, you know, you can sample anything, but the gold play brushes, I'm on portrait. So it's playing with the gold play brushes. What I'm doing with is playing with all the wet paint mixer brush settings and, you know, sampling from images or sampling from gold. And then, you know, with that whole collection, you can get all of these really cool dimensional effects. So that was the brush that I used. But what I did on this one was I sampled directly from the image. And so I just hovered. I didn't grab one of my palettes that I had made. I sampled straight from the image, like hovered it over here somewhere on her blazer. Okay, let's, hopefully I'll grab it in a good spot. And then, let's see what I did here. So then I made a new layer, and we just got those, it just like, it was funky and cool, and you know, this isn't exactly like the one that I did, but so I sampled using that mixer brush, and I just thought it was like a cool brush. I thought how it turned out was really fun, and so this is like very different or whatever. So again, that's the gold play brush. It's like a calligraphic brush. So it's a calligraphic. I've got the brush at an angle, and it's got a little bit of spacing there, so it's like fun. But yeah, just wiggled around with that, and I guess let's see here. Did something fun. Oh, I don't know why I keep stopping there. So annoying, but made it a lot of fun, and it's sampling directly from the images, so you know it's gonna look good. And yeah, oh, Carolina, super happy to see you. Está bien si llegaste tarde, pero no te preocupes, puedes mirar la replay. It's all good. So anyway, got to practice my Spanish. One thing that I would like to do is try to like I would like to challenge myself to do a live stream in Spanish or French, but I would definitely have to have somebody, one of my followers, to be online as like a emergency backup just in case I forget some words and stuff, because my Spanish is good, really good. My Spanish is good. I've not been practicing it, but my but what I will need to know is some Photoshop specific vocabulary for Spanish and French as well. So yeah, maybe that's gonna be on next on my list or whatever. But yes, I made these cool brush strokes like this. I'm guessing, gosh, now I want to go to my Evernote. Where's my brushes? Okay. I'm like, I gotta start having my Evernote, make sure that it's looking at my brushes already before I go to work. This is the Wet Paint Studio. These brushes have been for a while, but I made, oh yeah. Okay, I think it was brush 43 because it's got like a really soft edge. So I'm gonna go, I've got my mixer brush. I'm gonna go to my Wet Paint Studio. Let's see here. And it's brush 43. I need to make a new, these ones are like a little bit wild. My Wet Paint Studio, I made them quite a long time ago, but I think I'm going to make a new set of wet brushes that are like a little bit more subtle. So, okay, so I've got my wet paint studio, and for this one, I went ahead and I'm not sure if I'll just go ahead and sample from one of my color palettes that I made earlier in the video. So I'm going to option select, or maybe I'll grab this one, like option click. So I'm going to load that color up into the brush. And if I could remember which portrait I was on, that's 6, portrait 3, yeah. So I just, let me just turn these off. So I just loaded that brush up. I know it's going to match because I've sampled the colors like directly from this flower. And then I made like one brush stroke. Oh, that is real small. I'm going to right bracket, see what happens. Yeah. So make like a brush stroke behind her and then maybe make one above and, you know, play around with it, something like that. But you can see those nice little streaks. But if you don't like love how it turned out, you can always resample the brush, your palette, or even I'm going to sample like directly from this image, so I can option click. That loads that color up into the brush. Which portrait was I just on? Why do I have like, I have yeah. So yeah, usually this is kind of one of the trends whenever I'm sampling colors directly from images versus whenever I sample them from that special palette I make. So if you sample directly from images, usually the gradations in your brush stroke are a little bit more subtle and less dramatic. But when I take those same colors from here and then make a special palette using my palette maker brushes, then you usually get more of the dramatic brush strokes because you've got all of those little dots side by side. And yeah. And now I just loaded that color up into my brush, but it didn't fill the whole brush. So one thing that it didn't fill this whole area up here. So one thing that I can do, because I have a big brush, is I can like left bracket and then to make my brush smaller, resample, option click, and then now it's filled, and I think that's going to have a better brush effect finally in the end. And then I'm going to right bracket a few times, and then I'll go back to my portrait, which I'm still not remembering which one I'm on. And now, like, if I make that brush stroke, you might get some more, that's like a little bit better, you know, you can see the little bit more gradations and stuff. But anyway, I'm not going to go like too worrying about being too perfect with this because this is just to give you guys some ideas, and also especially for people who are like not used to using brushes, like if you're a designer and you say, oh, I don't need brushes and stuff. Oh, David, I'm so glad that you got something new out of this, because sometimes I think that everybody knows it, but then yeah, so sampling from the image can be really cool, and sometimes it can be cooler, sometimes it can be like you know, like it just depends. So there's a pros and cons on both of them. And oh, I'm glad that you like it too, Sydney. So I'm kind of like pushing myself to try some different things, and maybe I made too many of these to go over, but whatever. Anyway, it's just to give you guys some ideas. So, you know, like you don't have to watch all of them, but bless. But I love it. It's like I missed my live streams last week. Oh, thank you so much, Oman. I'm like super happy to see everybody. Let me just see if there's any ones that I didn't go over. So I think I didn't go over portrait 1. I went over portrait 2. I went over portrait 3. Portrait 4 I did. Portrait 5. Portrait 6 I did. And then I'll do that portrait just last. Yeah, so this one is like a little bit like, it's just to show you can just use any random brushes and make like a cool thing. Of course, I had to add some gold because I'm me. But what did I do here? So I've got like a wet paint mixer brush. I've got, let's here. I've got that. I have got one of the, looks like I used either a pattern painter brush or one of my Jungle Love brushes, and I used one of my Celestial Gold Mine gold layer styles. So the base of this was I took Jungle Love number 19. So I just thought it was quite cool. It's a fun patterny brush as well. So uh-oh, viewers, what is this? I hope my screen is okay. My screen sharing thing gave me a message. Eek. Okay, so yeah, so for this one, I just grabbed my pattern stamp tool. I grabbed my red palette from the rose on there, and then I went and I grabbed my Jungle Love brushes. I think they're in my collections. Yes. But yeah, just a couple brush strokes and you can accent things so much, or you can do so much with a couple brush strokes. Jungle Love. This was 19. These were a little like the pattern painter brushes that I just put out, but not 100% because the pattern painter, these ones are all filled in. So this is a jungly pattern. It's a little dramatic. If you look inside there, you've got like it's kind of like a giraffe print or something, but the brush tip is like really rough and rugged. So it kind of gives it a cool look. And if I don't love it, I can grab maybe my lighter if it's got dark spots that I don't like, I can grab another palette. But it was cool. So I just did that, threw that down, and then this has got one of my Celestial gold layer styles on it. Oh no, this one, yeah, I just thought I'd kind of play around with like a gradient. So I applied one of the Celestial Gold Mine layer styles, and then yeah, this is brush 28, I guess, from that, which has got like a pattern in it. So this is actually similar to one of my pattern painter brushes I just made, but I just wanted to put some gold and just making an accent essentially. And then finally I made a brush stroke. This is from my wet paint studio and it's got kind of these rough edges. I'm gonna try to see try to guess which one I used because it's got some rough edges. It's like I sometimes I just know them and then I can't, like, I don't know, maybe 23. Oh no, 34 is nice. I think it's 34. I'm going to go with that. So let's just grab my mixer brush tool. We're going to go to Wet Paint Studio, brush 34. I really like how that brush stroke turned out. In there, like it was like very dramatic, and this one looks quite dry, to be fair. So I'm not sure exact which palette that I used to sample from, but I'll just go ahead and try to sample from the image first, this flower that I pulled out and extracted. And can we remember which portrait we were on? Okay, one. So let's zoom in here. Let's turn that off. And let's see how this, yeah, I think that's that brush stroke. So this, I sampled it in a different area, so every time it looks different, but this looks pretty much like that. Looks pretty like the stroke that I made. Yeah, that's cool. I tend to like the ones that I had pulled out because I can make it a little bit more dramatic. Those streaks in there are a little bit more dramatic. But again, if you've got a good image with a good background, do not hesitate to sample directly from the image because it can be like it can be easier, just like less time. So if you don't have to worry about sampling the wrong thing, then it can be cool. But anyway, just drew a brush stroke there, so that's it. So you can see the same portrait accented like all the different ways. And then I've got one more before I pop off here. I've got that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, all these different ways to accent some portraits and stuff. This one was really easy. I'm gonna do it really fast. So I did this one was the Modern Renaissance mainly. And so let me see what I did here. So I had this portrait. I think it was I think it's the same lady. It's just from a, yeah, I think it's the same lady, but she's got like the white blazer on, but instead of a rose, it's like brownie or whatever. So what I did do is of course, I started with the background layer and I duplicated it. And one of the things that I wanted to show you guys really quick, a tip that I actually realized helped me to select subjects or pull them out is when I'm in my Magic Wand tool. On the select subject here, I didn't realize that there is a drop down. So normally I just click select subject and it does it. But if you go cloud, it's going to actually have a likelihood to have a better result because it's like, I don't know, probably like using AI or logging into like something with whatever, like some AI. But the device has a quicker result. Cloud has detailed results. So that was a little thing that I had come up with. And yeah, so now I've pulled her out of the background. So you can see like if I pour a, oh wait, make a new layer, you know, she's isolated. So I've got the background layer and then I've got her isolated, and now I want to like kind of fill that area in. So what I did was I grabbed my mixer brush tool, and then I grabbed my, we're going to do the gold sampling method, but what I did was I grabbed my Modern Renaissance brush number 14 and made a new layer. And then I went over to my gold palette and I sampled like option click, sample up some of that gold. And so then I can get this really gorgeous like layer here. And I like using this method because you get that little, oh, and one thing that's important to put is I put dry heavy load on the settings. So you can get, it's using that mixer brush setting. If you play around here and push, you can see that gold working around, but I kind of use a light pressure with that. But you get that goldy sort of effect, and it's, with this, I prefer to use this rather than just using like one of my gold layer styles, because if I just drop one of my Celestial Gold Mine layer styles, it's not right. Like it's not, you miss some of the pattern and all of that. So there's a time and place for each, and sometimes you can use a gold layer style rather than using a gold mixer brush. But in this case, I thought it looked really cool. And so I just filled the background up a little bit with this gold. And these brushes I really love. I need to use more. I think they would be make some really elegant sort of like maybe things for the holidays. But I actually sampled these patterns within these brushes from like public domain museum images, and they were all like free for public use and everything, so don't worry. But these, I actually pulled most of these from like textiles and stuff, because I wanted to have those kind of patterns within it, but I also didn't want to make them myself. So that's how that came about. And then, so I made that background. And then what I did was I took another brush. So I took I made a new layer. I took brush 17, so it's got a different pattern in it. But this time I'm using the pattern stamp tool. I'm using Renaissance brush number 17. And I'm going to grab that color palette. Oh, and I did the same thing. I had sampled some colors from here. So I grabbed one of the lighter palettes that I had sampled from this image. And so I played around with that, and I like kind of having some of those overlapping patterns with that brush. So I played around with something like this. And then the last thing that I wanted to do was to have a third layer in between them to kind of add that dimension and add a little bit of like whatever. So underneath it, in between those two layers, I made a new layer, and then I grabbed a brown, because I had made a color palette from this brown little flower here. So I grabbed a brown, and you could take any of my multicolor brushes, but in this case I grabbed like, I think it was one of my 5 fall brushes I released for my Behance subscribers, and it's, yeah, I think it was like a splattery watercolor brush, and this is on one of my recent live streams, so you can download that. But I just kind of played with, I thought that brush was really romantic, really cool, and I wanted to kind of feel, it's kind of like watercolor, it's a little artistic, and playing with that, you know, in between, and so you could just have a little bit of fun. So that was how I did that one. I thought that was quite pretty. And so we went from this one for a portrait. Let's see the original. So this was the original, and then we went into something like this. So you could use this for layouts, whatever. all that kind of good stuff. So anyway, hopefully I give you guys like some good ideas for like, don't forget to like sample within images. And how, you know, like kind of how I set up at the beginning, how I set up when I start off with an image, how I make my pattern stamp, the palettes for my Impressionist color blending brushes, and then also how I make the color palettes for my mixer brushes. I'm going to take this little guy and we're going to go for a walk because he's being real flippin' needy. Just wanted to say hi. And yeah, so that's going to be me bouncing off. I'm going to wait for my stream to like catch up and everything. But thanks to everybody who popped on today. And tomorrow I'm going to have another live stream. And I'm not exactly sure of the time again, but you can subscribe to me on Behance, and you can get a little alert when I go live. And I also sent it to my newsletter. I just wish it's like, I think it's at 1:30 tomorrow, I want to say. And also the last thing I was going to share is some of the work of I love when you guys are sharing on our Facebook group the different works. Anyway, I'm going to share this one by Creatology. You need to hold still. This is from Marillius, and she is doing so many cool things with my brushes, but she created this this layout, but she animates them too, and she made the mushrooms with the Wet Paint Studio brushes. She used my 24 karat gold for the ground, Galaxy brushes for the star. She used some of my ready-made gemstones and all that. So that was super awesome. I just love to see your guys' work. Why are you being squirrely? We gotta go to the dog park. Okay, I'm gonna put him on the floor. He's just mad he can't get like a steady thing. But anyway, just wanted to share Bentley to be a part of it. He's such a little spoiled butt. But anyway, thank you guys so much for following along. And Arwa, thank you. Thank you, Sydney, David, Oman, Carolina. And I'm going to see you guys tomorrow. I'm going to cook up something good tomorrow. I think I want to do what I think I want to do is like backgrounds. I don't know what I'll do tomorrow, but I'm going to do something fun and fast. And yeah, I'll see you guys then. So anyway, I'm going to bounce and go walk the dog. And I'm so happy to be streaming again, like super nice. And it's so much fun when you guys are on here and asking questions and all of that. That makes it so much more fun for me. So, and I'm learning things even. And thank you for whoever gave me the tip about Photoshop. And every time I was trying to save something, it was wanting to save it to the cloud. And so it's just a setting, but I knew there was a setting. I just didn't bother to do it. But some of those little things like that can be real time drains on you, and because then I have to click no, I don't want to, I want to save it to my desktop. So always look for those like little things that can like drain your time, you know, if you're having to do it every day. So anyway, I'm a good one to learn from there, because I'm like, I only went like a month where it was always saving to the cloud before I changed it. Anyway, all right, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much.